We are at the end of the second review in the workbook of A Course in Miracles. We're on lesson 90. Let's just very quickly review the lessons up till now, starting with lesson 81. Lesson 81 was I am the light of the world, and forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Lesson 82, the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness, and let me not forget my function. Lesson 83, my only function is the one God gave me, and my happiness and my function are one. Lesson 84, love created me like itself. Love holds no grievances. Lesson 85, my grievances hide the light of the world in me, and my salvation comes from me. Lesson 86, only God's plan for salvation will work, and holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Lesson 87, I will there be light, and there is no will but God's. Lesson 88, which was 2 days ago, the light has come, and I am under no laws but God's. Lesson 89 yesterday was I am entitled to miracles, and let miracles replace all grievances. And today is let me recognize the problem so it can be solved, and let me recognize my problems have been solved. Okay, so here we go. Lesson 90. For this review, we will use these ideas, and this is paragraph 1, and this is from lesson 79. So this is reviewing lesson 79. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. And here's Jesus' commentary. Let me realize today that my problem is always some form of grievance that I would cherish. Let me also understand that the solution is always a miracle with which I let the grievance be replaced. Today, I would remember the simplicity of salvation by reinforcing the lesson that there is one problem and one solution. The problem is a grievance, the solution is a miracle. And I invite the solution to come to me through my forgiveness of the grievance and my welcome of the miracle that takes its place. Specific applications of this idea might be in these forms. And this is all in italics. This presents a problem to me which I would have resolved. Next one, the miracle behind this grievance will resolve it for me. Finally, the answer to this problem is the miracle that it conceals. So that's the first part. The second is starting with paragraph 3. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Commentary. I seem to have problems only because I am misusing time, believing that the problem comes first and time must elapse before it can be worked out. I do not see the problem and the answer as simultaneous in their occurrence. That is because I do not yet realize that God has placed the answer together with the problem so that they cannot be separated by time. The Holy Spirit will teach me this if I will let him, and I will understand it is impossible that I could have a problem which has not been solved already. Paragraph 4, these forms of the idea will be useful for specific applications. And there are 3. And here's the first one. I need not wait for this to be resolved. 2, the answer to this problem is already given me if I will accept it. And finally, time cannot separate this problem from its solution. So if you remember that lesson, this is bringing in something new. That Jesus is actually bringing in a new idea here, which he didn't really talk about, or at least not as directly as he is here. He's bringing in the idea that there's no time. There's no time lapse necessary. Salvation is now, right? Freedom is now. Heaven is here. Heaven is now. We don't have to wait. We don't need to, solve the problem at some point in the future, but the problem can be solved right now. Because the solution is here right now, just as the problem is. And as Jesus said earlier, the solution is inherent in the problem. So let's go. Let's read lesson 90. For this review, we will use these ideas. Number 1, paragraph 1, lesson 79, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. And then the commentary, let me realize today that the problem is always some form of grievance that I would cherish. Let me also understand that the solution is always a miracle with which I let the grievance be replaced. Okay, so we have 2 things. We have a grievance, which is of the ego, and we have the miracle, which is the Holy Spirit. If we want to hold on to the grievance, if we cherish the grievance, then we cannot have the miracle. We cannot have both. We have to want the miracle and let go of the grievance in order to know, in order to see the light, right? The light has come. Today I would remember the simplicity of salvation by reinforcing the lesson that there is one problem and one solution. It's a very simple, elegant solution. There's only one problem and there's only one solution. No matter how many different forms they may seem to take, there's only one problem, there's only one solution. The problem is a grievance, the solution is a miracle. And you could also say the problem is a grievance based on the idea of separation, the tiny mad idea of separation, that separation is possible, separation from God and separation from our brothers is possible. And the solution is the atonement, which is the miracle, which is a miracle. And the atonement principle is separation is impossible. Never happened, never could happen, never did happen. Sorry, never happened, right? And I invite the solution to come to me through my forgiveness of the grievance and my welcome of the miracle that takes its place. Right? So for my forgiveness of the grievance is my letting go of the grievance. My understanding that the grievance is in the way of my happiness. The grievance is in the way of my peace. The grievance is not doing anything that I want. Specific applications of this idea might be in these forms. And again, this is not, you don't have to say it this way, but Jesus is just giving us some possibilities. This presents a problem to me which I would have resolved. Meaning I want this to be resolved. Whatever is being presented here in this moment, whatever grievance I'm experiencing, I do want this to be resolved. The miracle behind this grievance will resolve it for me. The answer to this problem is the miracle that it conceals. All right, so the problem is concealing the miracle is right there. It's just being hidden by the problem, right? Whatever the problem is, if we just let go of that problem, that grievance, the miracle is going to shine forth, blaze forth. So, next part of this is lesson 80. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. So first one was let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. And now let me recognize my problems have been solved. So once I recognize the problem, I can see that all my problems are part of that one problem, right? All of the different forms that my problems seem to take stem from that one problem, which is the problem of separation, which is the non-existent problem of separation. It's not even a problem, really. It only seems to be a problem, but it's not. So I seem to have problems only because I am misusing time. I believe that the problem comes first and time must elapse before it can be worked out. I do not see the problem and the answer as simultaneous in their occurrence. That is because I do not yet realize that God has placed the answer together with the problem so that they cannot be separated by time. So let's just talk about that for a moment. So what Jesus says in the text is that the very moment that the tiny mad idea happened, God gave the answer, right? The answer was right there. The answer, the Course calls the answer the Holy Spirit, right? So God sent the Holy Spirit, so to speak, in that very moment that there was that ontological seeming separation. God sent the answer, and it was undone in that very moment, and so nothing really happened, actually. This is just another way of saying separation never actually happened, right? It was gone. As soon as it seemed to take root, it was done, which means that there is no time, right? Time is completely illusory. Time is part of that. All time goes into that instant at which madness seemed to come to the fore, but in that very instant, it was undone. and this is all like beyond our comprehension. This sounds crazy, right? And this all might be very metaphorical as well. This is just the way to say this in words. If you had to use words, if you could use words, this is one way you would put it, right? So in that very moment, the Holy Spirit came, right? And this Holy Spirit has been there since the very beginning of time. Time is nothing. Time is an illusion. It's part of the illusion. But the answer has been there since the dawn of time. The Holy Spirit will teach me this if I will let him, and I will understand it is impossible that I could have a problem which has not been solved already. Right? The problem has already been solved. Remember that ontological moment, the tiny mad idea, but in that very moment it was gone. Right? In that very instant, it was done. I think Jesus says all of time was done in that very moment. There was no time, right? Nothing actually happened. These forms of the idea will be useful for specific applications. And then we have this in italics. I need not wait for this to be resolved. The answer to this problem is always given me if I will accept it. And time cannot separate this problem from its solution. Okay, so there is no time. Time is illusory. The problem and the answer are together as they've been from that very first instant, which is all of time. And all of time just reflects that instant, right? Everything is reflected right there. You have the problem and you have the solution in the very same instant. And so Jesus is saying the problem and the solution are right there still. It hasn't changed, right? It hasn't changed one iota since that ontological beginning moment. If you even want to call it that, it's not really. Beginning and endings are linear, those are concepts that we have because we seem to be in time, right? So we need to use those kinds of concepts, but the reality is that God could never change, right? And there could never be any separation from God. That is an impossibility. So it is upon each one of us to accept that, to learn to get our learning to the point where we don't even see a problem anymore. There's no problem, right? We don't see a world of problems. We only see that the solution reigns, right? That love is all. And so what has been said, and I think you may notice that I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, but you may have noticed that before you started doing the course, maybe before you knew these ideas, before you knew these concepts, or maybe before you had embarked on a spiritual path, you would get upset, and that upset would rankle in you for a long time, right? Sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, years. And sometimes it was like, I can never let this go. This is going to be with me for the rest of my life. This trauma, I can't shake it, right? This, whatever it was, whether it was a breakup, whether it was, accident, injury, you were in war, or it seemed like a war, or whatever it might have been, it's hard to let it go, right? As you start doing the spiritual work, especially as you do the course, and the course specifically says that it is here to save you time, it will save you a lot of time if you let it, and it'll do away with time if you let it. So as you start doing the course, you may start to recognize that you hold on to things less and less, right? whereas you might have held on to something for months before, now it just takes you a few minutes or maybe a few hours to let it go, right? You become like a little child. Look at children. They don't hold on to this stuff. They'll cry. They'll be crying, and 1 second later they'll be laughing, or really having a tantrum, and then they'll be it'll be completely shifted, like that, like that, in a snap. That's why I keep snapping. Anyway, I thought I would just bring in a current event again. I think I'm going to try to bring in current events just to make this a little bit more interesting and apply it. It's not just about being interesting. I think it's about being relevant and how this applies to our world today. So let's talk about something that I didn't really know about too much until today. I just kind of did a little search about it. The Olympics, the Paris Olympics. Got majorly criticized for this one part at the beginning of the opening of the Olympics, where it seemed to be that they were mocking the Last Supper, right? It was like they were doing like a mockery of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, and Christians felt that they were being mocked because of it. And it was definitely, in support of gay pride, and so it was like the wokeists versus the Christians, or the transgender movement, and the the pride movement versus the Christians. I don't think it was that. I think they might have been. Maybe it was meant to be. It was meant to cause a stir, push the envelope. But that's entertainment. You have to recognize that all these big shows that are like the Olympics is a big show, and in order to get viewers, you have to do things that are get people's attention. So that did. Were they really mocking the Last Supper? I don't think that they were. From what they were saying, they were actually doing something about Dionysus, and it was more of a reference to the Greek culture than it was to Christianity, and it was also supporting gay rights, and it was also against war. So you could look at it. You could look at it in a positive way. You could look at it as as a divisive thing, but you could also have a gentle laugh about it, right? And just say, oh, those French, or you could say, those French, they're so, what a stupid moronic culture, and they're so stuck up on themselves, and I think from a Course in Miracles perspective, you can have a little laugh, a gentle laugh at it, and at the the seriousness with which people get so upset about these things. But I also understand that if you have a family, you want. You might not want your kids to see that kind of stuff. Well, they don't have to, though. You could just not let them see it. Anyway, that's my little, if I had a soapbox, I would have it, I'll be standing on it right now. But anyway, Thanks for listening. I would always love your comments, your feedback, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.